Welcome again to the S.E.M podcast. I'm your solo host today, Zach Hewlett, and today we're joined by our friend Joseph Oliver. Joseph, it's good to have you, mate. What part of the world are you calling from?
St. Helens, near Liverpool, in England.
St. Helens, beautiful. I wore my Liverpool crest for you today. Hopefully, that's not offensive.
No, my entire family support Liverpool.
Okay.
My wife does, but my entire family does.
Very good. Well, Joseph, as we spoke before, he's been listening to the podcast format. We'll talk pre-mission and life prior to getting your call, and then we'll jump over the mission, talk about life since you've been home, and then we'll go back through Scotland and reminisce. So I'll give the time to you, Joseph.
Well, before my mission, I had it all figured out. I knew that I was going to go from the age of like 13, 14. I knew that I was going to go serve a mission. And over time, like the desire was still there, but obviously things get in the way of achieving that goal. I met a member of the church from down south in Newbury. We hit it off. We got engaged, and what looked like strong desire that I was going to serve a mission quickly faded. The prospect of marriage took over, and I was really, it was a rock and hard place. I think every missionary that goes on a mission, leaving someone behind, has that rock and hard place to go through. That desire that they really want to go out, but there's a big chance that that they're not going to be there waiting for them at the end of the mission.
Yeah.
I really, I really struggled with it. But in the end, I thought about it, and I thought, well, if it's meant to be, she'll be there waiting for me by the end of the mission. So I applied. I'd been to my patriarchal blessing, been through the patriarchal blessing, and reminded me of what it said in there about serving a mission, and that my righteous desires that I would serve in a country where I'd be able to teach my extended family. And at the time, I was looking at New Zealand. My uncle and auntie and two cousins lived out in New Zealand, and I, felt, this is it. If I know where I'm going, this mission call is going to come in, and I'm going to read it out. Oh, have you been assigned to serve in New Zealand?
Yeah,
and I'm just But obviously, that mission call never came. And I was swiftly reminded that Scotland is the place that I'm meant to go, and that there's somebody waiting for me, somebody that's, God's prepared, and that it was going to be an experience that I get to grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, growing up in England, were you a little bit disappointed with that call to Scotland, as some have said as well?
Yeah. I've got two older brothers. My oldest brother served in Montreal, Canada. My other brother served in Madagascar. And so, I just like my one of my best friends, Barry. We grew up together in the ward. He's 4 days older than me. And he got his mission call around the same time. And his was to Berlin, Germany. Okay. And I remember just feeling like, oh, do you know what? Seriously, what's going on here? Why have I been called to Scotland? I know what the Scottish think of the English. I really, this is like a bad call. Do I have the opportunity to object and maybe get somewhere else?
Right.
But quickly being weighted back down and just knowing that, okay, all right, they've prayed about it. There's a reason why I'm not going to New Zealand. There must be a reason, and obviously Scotland is the right place.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, good. Timeline wise, when did you enter the MTC?
So I entered the MTC on the 16th of June. No, sorry, the 13th of June, 2001.
In '01. Okay.
And that was a lovely experience. I was there with quite a few Englishmen, a Welshman, a South African, a Scottish sister, and a lot of Americans. And I think there was maybe 18 of us in total, 18, 19 of us in total. President Sister Jensen, the MTC president, and his wife. The catering had catered for. They got the order mixed up with the next group that was coming in, so they'd catered for like 60.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I distinctly remember this, like this one guy. For the life of me, I can't remember his name, but he went to serve in Leeds. But he sat down with me and he said, "Elder Oliver, we can't have one of anything. It's got to be even numbers. You've got to have even numbers of everything." And the chef behind, he was like, "Yeah, that's fine by me. I've got stacks of food that need to go." So I remember one morning I'd sit there with like a bowl of porridge and a slice of toast and an orange juice, and along comes this elder with another porridge, another toast, and another orange juice. And I quickly learned exactly what he meant by you can't have one of anything. It's got to be even numbers. I come from a family that loves ice cream. We can't get enough of the stuff. Like I'm not as addicted to it anymore as I used to be. Like I used to be able to sit there with a 2-liter tub of ice cream, and in about 20 minutes it's gone. I was just, it's gone. I love this. But I remember sitting there the last day before they left for Leeds. They left early. The mission president was being changed over in Leeds, so the outgoing president arranged for them to come in like a week early, that he could sort out the new missionaries, and so the new mission president wouldn't have that to deal with at the same time. So the night before they left, they sat down and they were like, "Right, Elder Oliver, this is an ice cream contest. We're going to have you, me, and a few other elders taking part." And I don't think it was even numbers that I did, but it was 2-liter tubs of ice cream. It was like Neapolitan and vanilla and raspberry and all these different flavors. I won. Looking back on it, it's not. I was proud at the time that I won. But looking back, it's not an accomplishment that I'm that I'm really that proud of. But yeah, I went into double figures.
Oh my word! Wow.
Yeah, and the other missionaries, they couldn't finish the tubs that they were on, so I then finished their tubs as well. Because we can't chuck ice cream in the bin; that would be a waste.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, I really loved my time in the MTC. My companions was Trevor Stanworth. I went to Scotland with, and Peter Reynolds, who went off to South Africa, Johannesburg, I think it was. But yeah, I'd loved them to bits. I really did. Trevor Stanworth, I think he was from Utah. We didn't click. We didn't really click. I distinctly remember him saying to me at one point, and I took it as it was, a joke. But he was like, "Elder Oliver, when we get to Scotland, I'm going to be the number 1 missionary there, and you're going to be the number 2 missionary." I'm like, "Yeah, all right, cheers, thanks for that." For confidence right there. But yeah, I didn't get to interact with Trevor throughout the mission. We always served in different areas. But yeah, he was, he came across as a really nice guy, and I'm pretty sure he is a nice guy. Just a few moments where, you could grab a kettle and smack him over the head with it.
You mean there's a little bit of a cultural difference there between the Utah boys and the England lads? I get it. Having done exactly the same, I understand.
Yeah, well, everyone knows that the English are stubborn, and we are. I'm probably the most stubbornest out of everyone. But it's a trait that I think I've learned to get rid of over the years. I probably won't comment on my wife on that subject, because I know that later on she'll the podcast and she'll just rip me to shreds.
Smart man.
Yeah. But no, I remember getting told off by the MTC president a few times. My companion Peter Reynolds, he needed the toilet. It was like 11 o'clock at night. The lights were off. He needed the toilet. I wasn't asleep. I couldn't get to sleep. And so I thought it'd be really funny just to jump down into the bottom bunk and to lie between the bunk and the wall. Back then, I was thin enough to fit in that gap. I couldn't do it now. And he came back from the toilet and he jumped into the bed, and I just put my arm around him, and he screamed. He screamed. Like, you'd think someone was beating him. He screamed to hell and back. And the MTC president, Jensen, obviously heard it. He wasn't impressed. So yeah, I remember a few conversations with the MTC president where he just, Elder Oliver, we don't do that here. Elder Oliver, we don't do that here. But like, for me, like, the iconic bit of the MTC was, I can't remember if he was on the presidency at the time, but Elder James E. Faust came over to England with his family, and you get told all the stories. You get told all the stories about a visiting general authority, and he wanted to meet the missionaries in the MTC at the time. So we had this special meeting, and we all 19 of us were there at the time. We got distinctively told, do not look in his eyes. Do not look at his eyes when you shake his hand. He can see right into your soul. He will know if you're a good missionary or if you're destined to be a bad missionary. And so, like, you'd see all the missionaries just not looking into his eyes, and it's just, it was so funny. And I was just like, head down. Yeah, it's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. But no, I absolutely love my time in the MTC. It's funny because when you're in the MTC and you've got the mock like discussions with local members. I remember sitting there in mine with my companion, and this member was just like, right, I'm going to ask a deep question and see how they react to it. And so he asked this really deep question, and I just sat there. I was just like, I have no idea what the answer to this is. I'm just going to sit here nice and hope that Elder Stanworth just takes it, for me.
Yeah.
And Elder Stanworth, he took it, and he answered it. And then the member went another bit deeper, and he answered that and went deeper and deeper and deeper until the point that, there's no coming back from this at all. And yeah, when we got back to the MTC, the teachers were just like, right, elders, one thing you very need to learn. Someone's asked you a deep doctrine question. You say, right, no, we need to focus on the basics, the principles of the gospel. We don't go deep. So, yeah, but at the same time, like those MTC mock discussions, they don't really prepare you for the real thing. They do in a way, but they really, really don't. Especially if you're English in Scotland, it doesn't prepare you at all. But no, yeah, I loved the time I got to spend there. I try to reconnect with the fellow MTC missionaries that I was there with through Facebook and so on, but I'm still trying to find quite a few of them.
Yeah.
But who knows?
That's awesome. So before we dive too far into Scotland, timeline wise, you got home about June 2003. Is that about right?
Yeah, June 2003, 16th of June 2003.
Okay.
That was difficult. I before going on the mission, I always thought that two guys sharing a room that you'd never met before, that you just suddenly, right, this is your new companion, go share this flat, go share this bedroom for the next few months. I always thought, that's just not right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, seriously, you got two rooms in the flat, you both get a bedroom each. Come on, seriously, it's just not right. It's weird. But by the end of the mission, I was constantly walking around, just looking over my shoulder. Where's my companion at? It didn't feel right to be in the street alone. It felt very, very strange and very weird at the same time. That there was nobody with me. I'd often, like my siblings would ring up and say, "Hey, Joe, do you fancy going out today and spending some time?" "Oh yeah, I'll go." Just so I've got someone I'm there with when I'm out. Just yeah, it was strange. It was really strange.
Yeah.
But I came home. I wasn't a one of these people that like to do extra curricular and extra academic studies and university and all this palaver. No time for it.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, to be fair, he knew that was the type of person I was. So he encouraged me to get a job at the bottom and work my way up. And that's what I did. I did a few temporary jobs and so forth. And I was dating a girl at the time, and her dad was the architect of this new security building that they were building in just outside of Wigan. And he said to me, "Well, I've got you a job interview if you want to go along and try out for this company." So over in America, I think they're called I don't know what you call them actually.
Is it a joiner job?
No. Over here, we call it cash in transit. So you got the guard with the helmet and the box with the cash inside.
Yeah. It's just they have armored cars, right? It's just a security individual who transports cash. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I went along for my job interview. They gave me a sheet with a load of math sums on it, and I said to them, I said, "Well, what's this got to do with whether I get a job or not? When's the interview happening?" "Oh, no. You've been vouched by the architect, so you've got the job. So we just need to see how good you are at maths. So just fill in the sheet and you start next week."
Wow.
Like, wow, this is incredible. I'm diving headfirst into a job, a company that isn't nationwide at the time, and so that's what I did. I worked my way up. I, in the meantime, was like a serial dater. Back in the day, LDS link up, like an matchmaking site. Yeah, I was all over that. I was always off out meeting different girls on dates up and down the country.
Nice.
Serial dater. But yeah, I never could commit. I was scared of the commitment. I was day John. So I came home to nobody, which was, yeah. So I just threw myself into my work. I just did what was required. Sometimes it involves Sunday work, and at the time I was like, do you know what? I can cope with this because I'm I'm a returned missionary. I can cope with this. But obviously, we all know that's not the case with anyone. You know, the more you stay away, the more comfortable it becomes, and it didn't work for me really. But I got offered a position to open up a new depot for them down in Coventry, in near Birmingham, and I took it. I saw it as I need to get away from the Northwest. I need to go and try and live away from my parents' house for once. Except for mission, to get out the parents' house and try and live.
Right.
And just before I moved, I met this girl called Miriam Amoa, and it was through LDS Link Up. My profile picture was my nephew. It wasn't me, so nobody had a clue what I looked like at all. And I asked her out, and she said, "No, I've got my exams coming up. I'm not interested in anything like that. I'm just here to make friendships with people. So if anything was like that was to happen, it would be after my exams are finished." And I remember at the time just being like, "Oh, sack that off then. I'm not interested. I'll crack on with my life then. Meet some other people." So when I moved down to Coventry, the depot manager was sacked within 2 months. The area manager was sacked within a few weeks after that. And they turned to me and they said, "Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back up north, or do you want to stay and give this depot a go for us?" So I was like, yeah, I'll stay. I'll give it a go. So I was working all the hours under the sun. My average week would be about 112 hours.
Wow.
And I threw myself at it. And then my branch president at the time rang me up and he said, "Joseph, we'd love you to go with this new guy. He's going to go to the temple for the first time. How do you feel about that?" And I was like, "Well, I work so much. I can't afford to have the time off. In that aspect, I'm pretty sure the bosses won't give me the time off. Even if I tell them it's to go to a temple, I don't think they'll give me that time. I'm really sorry, I can't do that." "Well, if anything changes, will you at least let us know?" Yeah, if something changes, I'll let you know." Literally, I hang up from that phone call and the new area manager rings me up and he's like, "Joe, because of all the hours you've chucked in and everything, blah, 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 we've decided to give you this weekend off." And I was like, "Wow, you sure you don't need me?" Yeah, Joe, you take the weekend. We don't need you." Right, okay, yeah, all right. And I sat there literally 2 minutes and I was like, "Do you know what? I could do so much with this weekend off." And then my thoughts raced back to the branch president and I was like, "Oh, do you know, but I promised him. So I rang him up and I said, "Right, yeah, I'll go. I've got the time off. I'll go." And literally sat in the Preston Temple, well, not the Preston Temple, but the distribution centre, the lounge next door to it. Sat in there opposite this girl and I recognised her straight away. And it was Miriam Amua. I didn't want to do it after her exams. And I said to her, "Oh, you're familiar?" And she's like, "You're not." I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's true, because my profile was my nephew." And I sat there, like, after the temple visit, I got back into my shorts and t-shirt, I always wear shorts and t-shirt now, except for Sundays. I can't get away with it. But shorts and t-shirt, it's me all over. And she was inquisitive. She was like, "Who is this guy who's in shorts and t-shirt? Outside is miserable. It's chucking it down. I've got to get to know a little bit more about this guy." A year and a half later, we got married.
Nice.
And yeah, she came originally from Oldham, Manchester, which I'll cover a bit later on with one of my companions. But yeah, years gone by, I'm now four daughters.
Nice.
Keris, 15, Liana, 11, Esther, 8, and Joni, 7 months old.
Wow.
Joni was a surprise, that's for sure.
Okay.
We'd planned for a long time after Esther, but because nothing happened, that was it. Do you know what? The Lord has given me 3 beautiful daughters. I'm happy with that. I'm happy to just move on with life. The next babe I'll hold will be a grandchild, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, literally, we went out for dinner and my wife said, "This brownie feels really off." And I'm like, "Really?" Because mine tastes really good.
No. Wow.
Yeah. But my wife, she's like my rock. Like everyone's, I heard it all the time. Randy Wilkinson, great president, would say it all the time. The more hours you chap in the rain, the more beautiful, more stunning, more gospel your wife will be. And I must have done a lot of chapping in the rain. I hated it. I really did hate chapping in the rain. But hey, I must have done well out of it.
Nice.
She really is just my rock. I went after working for that company. I set up my own business, and we transported all across the country. I got to go back to Scotland at least twice a month.
Wow.
A lot of the areas I served in, reminisced with some of the members I served with and served in, and it was amazing. And one of I always thought, I'll go to this area, this Sunday while I'm up there, and that'll be great. And I remember walking back into my Greeny area, chapel, and along came this member, and he's like, "Oh, did you serve here?" "Yeah, I did. Yeah, Elder Oliver." "I don't remember you." "Oh, that's wonderful." I said, 2001. "Oh, no, I don't remember that." Well, I remember you anyway. And he'd be like, "Oh, do you remember so and so?" "Oh, yeah. They're dead." "Oh, do you remember so and so?" "Oh, yeah. They're dead too." And he just go through the dead list. And
Oh my gosh.
after
Goodness.
that, I stopped wishing upon myself to go and visit the chapels in Scotland. I'm happy to look from the outside. But my wife, she I got called as the bishop in St. Helens 3 years ago. But I do honestly feel that my wife is more spiritual than I am. You promise, you're given the blessing of the discerning voice of the spirit of discernment. I'm pretty sure that blessing was given to my wife as well at the same time. We got to 9 years in my business. The business was flourishing. It was going great. I had stacks of cash I had no idea what to do with. We bought another house. We bought more vans. We bought more vehicles. It was great. Business was booming. And we got to about 9 years. My wife said that she'd felt that it was time to stop. She just had this really strong impression from the spirit that it was time to finish. And I was like, well, let's just keep it going for a little bit longer. Let's keep it going for a little bit longer, because we're in a great place at the moment. And a few months went by, and we're still in a great place. And she said to me, she said, Joe, I really feel strong that the Spirit's saying it's now is the time to finish. And I was like, well, I don't want to give it up, but do you know what? I'll pray about it. I didn't, but I just went along with the fact that my wife, and she'll love me for saying this, my wife is hardly ever wrong. And she, you know, we made the preparations. We told all the clients. I moved the clients over to a fellow company that I'd worked alongside with some of the contracts. We sold off all the assets and everything. And literally, the moment the sale went through and everything like that, 7 months later, COVID hit. And all the businesses and that sector I was in stopped dead.
Yeah.
And, you know, I looked at it and I was like, well, you know, I've been putting it off, and she felt the Spirit strong that you had to finish now. It has to finish. I didn't know what was coming. Obviously, she'd felt so strong that we had to finish. And then she said, I said to her, I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? And she's like, well, you can get a part-time job, something to fill your head with. Because she works full-time as well. And I was like, well, you know, that's going to be really hard, to go from owning my own business to working for someone else for so much by the hour. And, you know, as you do, you end up working at Domino's as a delivery driver.
Nice.
But yeah, 7 months later, COVID hit. And I was like, right, okay, you know, what on earth's going on? And my wife, she said to me, she said, Joe, I have the strongest impression that you're getting called as bishop. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. And she's like, no, I have the strongest impression that you're getting called as bishop. I'm like, no. And so, you know, an interview got arranged for me and my wife, and I got called to the High Council. And I was like, yes, you're wrong on this one. You're wrong. 9 months later, called as bishop. And it was just like, come back, you know, come crashing back down again.
Yeah.
And then, you know, recently she said to me, you know, Joe, I have this strong impression. No, don't know. Don't even bother telling me anymore. I don't want to know. You know, bishop is hard enough as it is. You know, I don't want to know next. Just let it be. When it comes, it comes. But I took the same principles as being a bishop as I took from serving in Scotland. The best piece of advice my dad gave me before I left was love the people. If you love the people, you won't go wrong. And that's what I thought. Well, yeah, okay, I'll take that principle, and I'll love the people. I love my ward members. I really do. They're fantastic. They're probably going to be watching this at some point. So they really are lovely people.
Yeah,
I love them to bits. But
it's great.
This may bring back some memories for you. I don't know if this was still around when you served on your mission. But one of the things that, you know, like, you collect different things. Every area you go to, a missionary's left something behind, and you pick it up and you're like, oh, this is cool. And it was the child discussions, the Scotland Edinburgh Mission child discussions.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I know. I grabbed it. I put it in like a plastic wallet to preserve it. I got home, I scanned it to the computer, and I kept a digital copy. And on the mission, I said, you know what? I'm going to use this. One day, I'm going to find a use for this. So now every child that's coming up to the age of 8 or for baptism, when I interview with them, I give them a copy of the Scotland Edinburgh Mission Trail Discussions, and I say it's it's a cool book. Go away, colour it in, but learn from it. Read the words inside. This will help explain so much to you that subjects that you might find, oh no, can't really go into that detail with that. This will cover it all, and so it's like a lasting legacy for me that I get to give it to all the primary children coming up for baptism, which is just fantastic.
That's so cool. I love to hear that. You'll have to send us a copy of it too, because it's been a minute since I've looked through that packet. That'd be really fun to have.
Yeah, definitely. I'll email you a copy of it.
That'd be cool. I love it. Very cool.
Yeah, I loved it. It's like so many bits and pieces that like I do often wonder that if I had the opportunity now to go back and say it was Chris Martin back to Paisley for the space of 6 weeks, how would it be? Like, and I've learned so much more about myself, and changed in a lot of ways. But if given one more chance, could I actually go make a difference? Would it be beneficial to the church for me to go back and do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, like the moment I arrived back, I walked through the door. My family had done a surprise arrival for me, and after about a week, I started wishing that I could go back and do another 2 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't like when I started the mission, I didn't want to be there. But by the end of it, I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was just, it was an experience that the memories will last forever for me.
Yeah, you're not alone in that thought at all, Joseph. I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of sit there. I had that experience the night I got home. Like, I called my last companion from my bedroom in Utah, and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "I can't talk right now, but it's good to hear that you're home and safe." And for me, it was just that connection, right? To continue to be in touch with those that you spent so much time with. You grew to love in such a way that you just wanted to be back in that same situation, as tough as it was to be chapping in the rain and talking to strangers all day. I mean, it was hard work, but it was fulfilling at the same time. And so I understand exactly where you're coming from there, Joe.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, take us back now. Take us to the mission home and start us off with your experience going through Scotland.
So I remember. I don't remember much at the early stage of getting to Scotland. I just know that it was like an early dart in the back of a minibus over to Preston to jump on a train and straight up to Edinburgh. I can't remember if I slept or not, but it seemed like it just went by really quick, and suddenly I was there. And we were looking out the windows of the train and we could see the assistants. Well, I didn't know it was the assistants at the time, but we could see the assistants. We could see another companionship there later to find out it was the office elders, and then there was President and Sister Wilkinson. And I didn't know what to expect, if I'm being honest. Like, if I was to imagine my mission president before meeting him, he would be this like really tall American and just so wise and powerful, and apart from the tall bit, I was spot on. I was shocked that I was taller than him. I didn't expect that to happen. But I got off the train, really firm handshake. I definitely remember that, the firmest handshake ever. And it's like, wow, that handshake not only says welcome, but it says, I've got you now for the next 2 years. You are not leaving my grasp. And yeah, I went out on you went out for like the experience with a missionary that was serving in the area, in Edinburgh. I went out with this guy who was from England, from London. I really can't remember I can see him, but I can't remember his name. But we went out and we had a great time. And I looked at him as if like, wow, you know everything. You know exactly how things work and what the approach should be and everything. And I loved it. I really did love it. And then of course we went to the B&B that night. The next day, we went up into what was like the second floor of the mission home, with the crest behind us. And we sat there and we look across and we see what would be our trainers. And you're looking over and you're like, oh, wonder which one mine's going to be, which one's mine. Oh, and then all of a sudden your name's called, and then followed by Elder Jesse Jones, from Idaho. Straight away, I was like, oh, this guy's cool. This guy's cool. I'm gonna love serving with this guy. We got our picture taken, and then suddenly we were on the train out to Coatbrig, part of the Erdry ward.
Nice.
Well, I always said Coatbridge until someone from Coatbrig, corrected me.
Yeah.
It was like GQing in the town centre, and I'm just like, yeah, it's great to be here in Coatbridge. And they're like, it's Coatbrig. What? But yeah, we jumped on the train out, and we got off at the station, and there to meet me and my companion was John Collins and Carol Collins. John was the ward mission leader at the time, and little did I know, I didn't really know much about mission mums. I just knew that people looked after you and they fed you and they gave you dinner appointments. But mission mums, I didn't really know much about. And little did I know that Sister Collins was going to become like my first mission mum.
Nice.
She was just lovely, really lovely. I just, helped me, welcome me. I was anxious about meeting Scottish people because I knew how they felt about the English.
Yeah.
How some of them felt about the English. But it was just, open arms, and you could feel the love instantly. John Collins, I remember him, later on saying that the worst calling he ever had was the ward mission leader. But, to me, he was like the best ward mission leader I ever had. Really was. I remember him, like, he would bring cake, like homemade cake and stuff like that, to make us feel at ease. But we, they drove us to the missionary flat, and it was at the back of Monklands Hospital, in Erdry, not in Coatbrig. And it was the first house on, I think it was Cherry Tree Drive or something like that. And it was a detached house. And it was just like, okay, so we've got like the upstairs to this house. No, this is a missionary flat. What, the whole house? Yeah, the whole house. I'm like, no way. We get a detached house? This is incredible. And like the back garden was pretty big as well. And I'm just like, straight away start thinking of all the cool things I can do in this house. Now, me and Jesse, I'm sure if I was to meet him now, that I would like we would get on like a house on fire. I dearly love the guy to bits. I really do. It's one of those you don't realize what you had until you lose it. I remember arguing quite a lot. I remember, in my head being, I know what a mission is all about. You don't need, you can't teach me anything. Blah, 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 and like thinking back to how I was, I probably, if I was Elder Jones, I don't know how Elder Jones survived 3 months with me. I really don't. He must have had the patience of a saint. But he, we just got stuck in. At first, like the first 2 weeks of being there, I read my journal yesterday on the first 2 weeks, and it was just, I don't like being here. This area stinks. I'm going to ask the mission president to move me to a better area. I'm going to ask the mission president to send me home. I don't want to be here anymore. It's not what I thought it would be. It's not what it's cracked up to be. I just want to go home now. And then I don't know what it was that cracked inside of me. But the messages after that in my journal get better. And I wanted to be there. I really did want to be there. It's, I didn't realize how much members would pick you up, give you that great big cuddle, and then put you back into the field again. Well, that's what it felt like in Erdrey Ward. I felt like the members would embrace me every single Sunday. And that's what drove me through the first few months of the mission, where I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to go home. I feel really bad for Jesse. I really do. So if he does, at one stage ever listen to this, I want him to know that I love him to bits, and I'm really sorry for the hell I put him through. But like one of the fond memories with Jesse was that he had this thing that you knock on the neighbours' doors of where you live, so you can introduce yourself, so you can start, so everyone knows who you are within the street. And we knocked on this one door, and this guy said, "Would you like to go see the battle, the battlefields in Stirling?" And we looked at each other and we were like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." And he's like, "Well, I can take you. I can take you." And we were like, "Well, we need to get authorization for that." And we went back across to the flat, rang up the mission president. "Can we get authorization to go with this neighbor of ours to Stirling? Is he an investigator?" "Well, he's promised that we can teach him a lesson if we go with him." He's like, and the president was like, "Okay, elders, yeah, okay, I'll give you that authorization. Do what you feel is best." And yeah, like I remember on the way there, just scared out my life completely. This guy could not drive. He couldn't drive.
Oh no.
I was in the back seat of the car. Elder Jones was in the front seat with him. And he turned onto this roundabout. He come off the motorway, he turned onto this roundabout the wrong way. And he was heading in the direction of all the traffic.
Oh my gosh.
Slamming on, beeping and weighing, everything like that. And I just, like the one bit I remember the most about that is that I leaned over, grabbed my badge, took it off and put it in the pocket. Because I didn't want anyone to see inside the car and be like, "Oh, missionaries for that church. Oh, they've driven the wrong way around the roundabout." No, I just, it's an impression I didn't want to give anybody.
Wow.
but we got there. We taught him the first discussion. He wasn't interested. He really wasn't interested. But we got to teach him, and we got to see a bit of Sterling in the process. Before Elder Jones left, we did bond. We got to a point where we were able to sort out our differences, and I tried to be that little bit better of a companion for him. And yeah, we were together for 3 months. Loved the guy to bits, and then he moved on. And in my place, I got Daniel Moore. And my first memories of that was, come back, Elder Jones. I will be the best junior companion you have ever had. I will go above and beyond if you just come back. Please come back. I didn't see eye to eye with Daniel at all. We had a few like things at the time. We were looking at moving the missionary flat. And we moved it closer to town, closer to Coatbridge, on a new estate. And I remember coming out of that new estate with Elder Moore and meeting this guy. And straight away he was just like, have you got something that I can take to remember you? And we were like, yeah, we got a Lamb of God Pass-along card. And we handed it over, and it had the picture of the Saviour with Mary. And he said, she's wearing a red scarf. Why is it red? And I'm just like, oh, what? Eh? Oh, she's wearing a red scarf. Yeah, well done. Fetch has that got to do with anything? He's just like, but it's a red scarf. And we're like, yeah, it's a red scarf. Anyway, let's talk about the gospel. But it's a red scarf. Yeah, it's a red scarf. It's a red scarf. Yeah, okay. Let's move on. It's a red scarf, though. And I remember just like this one guy. I remember him so well because of the red scarf. And he just wouldn't let it drop. And we just walked off in the end. We just had enough of him.
It just reminds me of so many other interactions with people in Scotland. Like, why are you hung up on such a random thing? It just didn't make any sense.
No, like the early stages of knocking the doors in Coatbridge. I remember so many doors would open, and they'd look at the badges and be like, "Oh, you're the missionaries from the Mormon Church." Yeah, okay. Some people call us that. So whereabouts in the States are you from? And Elder Jones would be like, "I'm from Idaho." Oh, wonderful. Elder Moore's like, "Oh, I'm from Utah." And they're like, "What about you?" "I'm from near Liverpool." "Oh, you're English? Not interested in you. You just be quiet. You can carry on talking." And I was just like, "Oh, how rude! How rude is this?" And I cracked in Coatbridge. I really did. Like we were out for so long, and it was I'm sure it was Elder Moore I was with, and I remember going to this one house, and I couldn't even finish the first sentence. And the guy opens up, and I'm like, "Hi, we're missionaries." Slam, gone, just door shut, and I was like, "No, I'm not taking this. I'm not taking this. No, I'm not." So I went round to the back of the house, and I knocked on the back door, and the guy came and he opened the door, and I was just like, "Hi, we're missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Your neighbor is really rude." And he just stood there dumbfounded. He didn't know what to do. He was just like, and I'm like, "So we're here to share a message about the gospel. Would you have time for us to come in and maybe share with you about the gospel of Jesus Christ?" No, I'm just not interested in stuff like that. But thank you for coming by. And just like really, like weirdly closing the door, like what on earth has just happened here? You know, I snapped. I snapped, and there's only so much of having the door slammed in your face that you can take.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, like so many funny experiences. But yeah, I was there at the same time as my district at the time. We had Elder Douglas Gilbert, Elder Mike Archibald, and Elder Jeffrey Brown. And Mike Archibald, one of the most laid back missionaries I ever got to serve around. He was just fantastic. We went on splits. I'd go with Elder Archibald. He just, he had a way of doing things, and I'd loved every minute of it. Loved spending time with him. So then, obviously, Moves Night comes along. You sit there, and I don't know if it was still the case when you were out, but you'd sit there and you start by saying a prayer, and then you'd sing, "I'll go wherever you want me to go, dear Lord," the hymn. And then you'd sit there and wait to see if the phone rings.
I'm going to admit right now, Joseph, we did not do that. Not even close. But clearly we probably should have.
That definitely faded out then.
That's great, though.
Oh, before I move on, so Elder Jones, he was trained. His father in the mission trained twice.
Mm-hmm.
So the original, line of authority got a tie, and I can't remember what his name was. My grandfather, what his name was. So he gave, he gave him a piece of toast, and it was like the end part of the bread. And he gave him, a piece of toast, and he wrote his name on it, year, from, and to. Elder Jones did the same thing. I never trained while I was out, so I took this piece of toast and I took it home. Now,
do you still have it?
Well, you'd think by now that it's probably got mold and all kinds of everything with it. I don't know where it went. I remember getting it out to show one of my kids at one point, and this would have been about 5 years ago.
Oh my gosh!
And I've not seen it since then. So what? I've been back 21 years. So yeah, I managed to keep hold of a piece of toast for the best part of 18 years.
Oh my gosh!
Preserved.
Probably grew legs and walked away by that point.
Oh god. But yeah, so before I moved on, we heard about a stabbing in Paisley, where these missionaries were like the bus stop right outside the stake centre. The missionaries were getting on the bus to go back home, and some kid had picked up a football and thrown it at the back of one of the missionaries, and it hit him right on the back of the head. And he jumped off the bus to have a go about it, and the missionaries all powered off the bus with him, and eventually someone stabbed him. One of the kids pulled out a knife and stabbed him.
Oh my gosh, goodness!
And I remember, I'm just like, at the time I was like, I hope and pray I never serve in Paisley. I really hope this missionary recovers. And that was, Elder Jeremy Bushnell. So obviously, the mission, the transfer calls come, and the assistants are like, Elder Alva, just bear with us, please. Mission president will be with you in a minute. President Wilson comes on and he's like, Elder Alva, you are being moved. You're going to go serve in Greenock. You'll be there serving alongside Elder Jeremy Bushnell. Now, Elder Bushnell recently got stabbed in Paisley. And I was like, oh, wow, that's the missionary that recently got stabbed. Yes, he recently got stabbed and he's still recovering from this. So he can't carry anything. So you're going to need to carry all his stuff in your bag as well.
Wow.
And I was just like, I'm grateful to go to a new area, but I ain't carrying someone else's stuff as well as my stuff. Come on, that's just not right.
Yeah, you're like his pack mule.
Well, yeah, you know, like what you can tell, like I got off on a great foot with Elder Bushnell. Like, and we had this like I thought coming, you know, like being in the first flat with a detached house was amazing. I thought that was just fantastic. I then go to Greenock, and our flat is on the promenade. And it's like 4 or 5 flights of stairs up to the flat, but it's like it's the top flat in the building that overlooks, you know, the river and the prom, and it's just incredible. Like there was enough bedrooms and bathroom and facilities for at least 6 missionaries to live there.
Wow.
It was huge. And then the chapel was literally, you know, a 5-minute walk away around the corner and up the hill. And again, you know, I don't know if you ever saw Greenock Chapel, but a double-story building. It was huge. It was big enough to be a stake centre. I just couldn't believe it. It was just massive, and it was a branch. It was maybe 16 people, 20 people that attended, and there was 2 sets of missionaries. So, you know, take out the 4 missionaries, it's not a lot of members that are attending there. But they had this massive building, and I just remember, just like, it's bigger than my chapel. How did you get a building that big? I don't understand it. What did you do? You know?
Yeah. Wow.
But I went there, and despite earlier concerns that I wasn't going to get along with Elder Bushnell, we did click. We clicked, and the one experience I remember, we got on the bus and we went down to Largs on the coast, and I think it was like a referral, one of the Lamb of God referrals, or one of the others, and we knocked on the door, and the lady invited us in, and you know, she said, yeah, so the main reason why I invited you down here is because I'm having trouble. There's some sort of spirit in this house. And when I go into the kitchen, there'll be a plate or a microwave or some cutlery, and it'll be floating in the air. And obviously the first concern is if the girl was on drugs or not, which she definitely wasn't.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
And, you know, like we could hear, sat in the lounge, we could hear things. We could hear things in the kitchen. And she promised us that nobody was in there moving things around. And Elder Bushnell was just like, well, we can dedicate your house for you if you wish. And, you know, I'd never done anything like that before. So I was in awe. I was, you know, ready to learn from Elder Bushnell. So we went along and he said, can we open your front door to invite the spirit to leave? Oh, yeah. And so the door opened. And Elder Bushnell gave this dedicated prayer, praying that this house would be safe for her and her children. And on the conclusion of saying amen, the front door closed. And I was like, this is amazing, this is cool, but get me out of this house as quickly as possible. Just, you know, I
don't blame you.
Anything like that, ever, wow. You know, like, I must have been, like, sheltered growing up in the church. I must have been. Not been anything like that. And that was just beyond belief. It was weird. But yeah, so we served together a good 3 months. We had a few islands in the area. While with him, we went across to one of the islands. That cost us like £4 to get across and £4 to get back.
That's not bad.
No, it wasn't bad at all. It was only about a 20-minute journey on the ferry. Majority of that 20 minutes was locking the ferry up so we could move on water. But we went across and we were just like, you know what? It's a short ferry trip. We're not going to waste a lot of time traveling. That'll be fine. We can talk to people on the ferry. So we got on the ferry. Everyone sat in the cars, and nobody's a pedestrian. So it's like the loneliest 20 minutes sat on a ferry talking to each other and not really getting to do any missionary work. And then you get to the island to realise that it's got 20 houses at the most. And that's it. Nobody really lives there. It's more a holiday experience.
Wow.
So, like the next ferry was like 4 hours later. So I don't know how we passed the time. I can't remember how we passed the time. It wasn't interesting, that's for sure. But we did go for a walk around a bit of the island before getting on the boat to get back over. So 3 months comes and goes. Elder Bushnell moves on. We're also there with Elder Divine, Martin Divine, and Jonathan Redworth, and they were in Port Glasgow. But they all moved on at the same time. They closed the area for proselyting elders, and they gave the flat to the Siswicks from Huddersfield, England. Elder and Sister Siswick, and they were just lovely. You know, the area was ready for them. It really was. You know, they were able to connect with so many members from an older point of view and work with them. It was perfect for them. And in replacement, I got Elder Jeffrey Brown, that I'd already served in the same district as. And we got on, and we loved it. We loved serving together. Elder Brown was ill. He was quite, he spent a lot of time ill while we served together. And I remember just being frustrated that I'm sat in the flat again. Elder Brown's ill again. I want to get out of the flat. I want to go and do something. One of the experiences with Elder Brown I'll never forget. So we took a bus trip down to Largs. We got off the bus and we carried on walking down the coast. And there was these like really large bungalows that overlooked the coast. And we decided that we were going to knock on each of these doors on the way down. And we got to this one house, and this guy let us in. No, sorry, this lady. This lady let us in, and she's like, "Yeah, come in. I've been expecting you." And we're just like, "Oh, right, okay, right, yeah, okay. This sounds fantastic." So we go in, and she's there. She's got the table that she's been sat at, and she's got these Scrabble letters that form a circle and that have the words yes and no in the middle, and she's got her glass cup. And I'd heard of Ouija boards, but I'd never seen a homemade Ouija board like this ever.
Oh my gosh!
I sat there. I didn't know what to expect, and she was just like, "Do you want to know how I knew that you were coming?" Yes, my husband told me. Oh, and where's your husband? He died years ago. Oh, right. So, what? He connected to you through the Ouija board or something? Yeah. I'm talking to him. We talk daily. Oh, right. Okay.
Gosh.
And she was like, "Put your finger on the glass," and I'm like, "I don't really want to do that." And she was like, "No, trust me. put your finger on the glass. So me and Elder Brown, we put our fingers on the glass with her, and she was just like, tell them who they are. Tell them who they are. And she went, you could feel her finger dragging this glass. And she went, J.W. And I laughed, and I was like, no, that's not us. And she went, you are Jehovah's Witnesses. We're like, no, we're not Jehovah's Witnesses. You must be. My husband told me that you're Jehovah's Witnesses, so you are Jehovah's Witnesses. No, we're not Jehovah's Witnesses. Ask your husband again. Ask him again. All right, okay, I'll ask him again. And we, fingers weren't on the glass at this point. And she's like, who are they? And went, J.W. And we're like, we're not Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not. Well, who are you? Oh, we're Mormons. Mormons? Yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Oh, you can leave now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you can leave now. Oh, okay. Right. Okay. Thrown out into the rain and, walking back to Lags to get on the boat.
Wow.
It was just, like, wow, this is how you get treated, because you're not a Jehovah's Witness. Like, me and Elder Brown, one of the things that we did was we went over to Dunoon. It wasn't an island, but it was part of the area. It was where the American Air Force Base used to be based over there.
Mm-hmm.
And hence why Greenock had a massive building, because the Air Force bases were in Greenock and Dunoon. And that's how they got the building, through that. But Dunoon was lovely. We went over there to teach a family called the Lovelands. And we would go every week, and we'd teach them a new discussion every week, and so on, until about week 4, where President Wilkerson sat us down and he said, right, elders, it's great that you got a family that's so interested in the church and able to accept these discussions and work towards these commitments, but how are they going to get to church? What do you mean? Well, how are they going to get to church? Are they going to jump on a ferry every week and come over and walk down to the chapel? It's not realistic. So I remember going back one more time after that, and we had the chat with them, and we were just like, listen, we're very sorry, but realistically looking at it, how are you going to get to church? And they agreed with us that it was a shame for them. They really enjoyed our company. They really enjoyed us coming by. I remember getting a picture with the entire family with Elder Brown. We loved it to bits over there. We really did. But President Wilson was right. This family have no way of getting to church. To be honest, you feel like sending a referral now to go to the missionaries in Greenock, to go back to Dunoon, now that we have technology in churches and they can tune in.
That's right. Set them up on a Zoom or whatever,
Yeah.
Easy as can be.
At the wrong time. I was born way too early. But Elder Brown, he had this thing, and he had the mission down to exact. He knew exactly what moves were going to be done, and you're told that only President Wilson receives the revelation on where missionaries go next, and he would predict the moves. And like the 6 weeks I was with him flew by, and we came up to that transfer, and he said, "Elder Oliver, you're going to be moved on this next transfer." And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're going to move, and it's going to be either Aberdeen zone or Inverness zone. And if it's Aberdeen, it's going to be Huntly or Elgin or Peterhead. Or if you go to Inverness, it'll be Ornest or Thurso, and that's your options." And I'm like, I don't understand how you can predict this, Elder Brown. And he said, "Well, the fact is, you're English. You have a driving license. And the mission is short on driving licenses at the moment, and working out where people have just moved to and where people have been for a while, I'm predicting you're going to be one of those areas. I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever, Elder Brown. Okay. Yeah, you received the revelation like President Wilson does. Yeah, wonderful. So obviously, mission moves comes, we sing, I'll go where you want me to go, dear Lord. And the phone rings. And the assistant's like, Elder Oliver, please wait a minute. Mission president will be with you in a sec. I was like, okay, right, okay. And he comes on, he's like, Elder Oliver, we're moving you. You're going to move to Huntley in Aberdeenshire. And I'm like, no flipping way. He's predicted one of the areas was Huntley in Aberdeen State. Aberdeen Zone. I'm like, no way. This is unreal. And he's like, you're going to be a driver. Elder Thomas is your new companion. He doesn't have a license yet. He's working towards his license. So you're going to be the driver for the area. And you're also going to be the first councillor in the branch presidency in Huntley. And I'm like, what? You what? Okay. All right. I'm going. Fine. I get off the phone and Elder Brown's just like, I told you where you're going. And it's like, wow, okay, is this really led by the Spirit, or is this led by driving licenses? I had to like really try and come to grips with what was going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I on the train all the way to Aberdeen, I went there with someone else. I can't remember their names. And then jumping on the train out to Huntley with Elder Thomas. Nathan Thomas, I loved him to bits. I really did. He was from Utah, I think. We clicked instantly. We had a similar sense of humor. And we just gelled, really just gelled. And Huntley for me, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. We get off the train, and I'm looking around the car park, and I'm just like, so which car is ours, Elder? And he's like, the clapped out white one right there. And I'm like, well, you know what? It may be clapped out, but I'm not walking anymore. That's the main point. I'm not walking anymore. And he's like, yeah, well, let's go to the mission flat, jump in. 2 minutes later, we're at the mission flat, literally around the corner. And I'm just like, right, which one is it? He's like, the one upstairs. I'm like, yeah, let's go in, explore. It was smaller than what I'd had in the last two areas, but it was lovely. And I remember the first morning waking up the next day to the most horrendous smell. And I was just like, Elder Thomas, what is that? What is that smell? I can't work in these circumstances. What on earth is that smell? And he's like, oh, just there where you've got the playground and then the trees. The trees are blocking the local sewage plant. I'm like, wow. That's a drawback for me. That's a definite drawback. And then we'll, he'd be like, right, let's go do a bit of shopping. Okay, let's go do a bit of shopping. 2 minutes across the town to Summerfields. And first time I've shopped in a Summerfield. I don't normally shop before my mission in Summerfield. But I just remember going up and down and just like, this is cool. I've got a car sat outside waiting to go back to the flat, and no more dragging the bags and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I loved my time in Huntley. I met so many members that I just wanted to scream with laughter and so on. I'd never served in anywhere leadership really before my mission, so first council and branch presidency was a wake up call for me. But I remember George and Jean Barclay. They attended church. They were always at church. George was a priest, I believe. He was probably late 60s, early 70s, something like that. He would ride his bike to church, and his wife would follow on. But he would come help set up. He would pass the sacrament to everyone in the room, and then sit with his wife. Church was different there. It was like surreal for me. Fast and testimony weeks. We literally did until everyone had got up and bore testimony, and then closed with prayer and hymn, and end of the meeting. It wasn't an hour or an hour and a half at the time. Though it was literally until everyone had bore testimony. Including like the missionary couple as well, the Frank and Kay Smedley. He was the branch president. His wife, I think, was like the primary president, Relief Society president, Young Women's president, everything president. But just you come across a branch like that are still surviving. Like they've closed the branch now and mixed it into Elgin, but that survived for so long, and it's just like you want to do your best. You want to give them a good crack at what you've got to offer them, to try and help continue the legacy of Huntley Branch, going on for a lot longer than what happened. But yeah, I remember one Sunday we had this sister who would travel in from Inch with her daughters. The husband wasn't a member of the church, and it was Fast and Testimony Week, and she stood up and she was like, so it's interesting this week. I got to teach my daughters about the word of wisdom and how we must follow the word of wisdom. And then on the way into church this morning, of course, we see our priesthood holder that passes as a sacrament on his bike on the way down to the church. One hand on the handlebar and the other one with the cigarette. Constantly going. And how can this man pass the sacrament to us? How can he? And I remember Elder Smedley would just like stand up straight away and be like, sister, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this after the meeting. And Elder Smedley went and spoke to George at his house, and he was like, George, you need to stop smoking. This isn't right. You can't be smoking and passing the sacrament. It's just not on. And he was like, okay, I'm willing to give it a try. I'm willing to give it. And I think he did. I think he managed to give up smoking. I don't think it was a long time that he gave up smoking for, but he gave up smoking for a period of time. One evening of the week, we would go over to a guy called Davy McTavish to do a scripture study night. Davy was just amazing. I think he joined the church when he was like late 70s. He was like late 80s at this point. He had the fattest cat I've ever seen. This cat couldn't move. It didn't move, like I saw its feet, but I couldn't see any legs. It was like surrounded by the body. And it's the bed was literally, you had to pick him up and put him in his bed. And Davy McTavish, you'd watch him struggle to pick up his own cat and lift him maybe like 20 centimeters, something like that, off the floor to put the cat into its bed. I remember, like the fattest cat really was the fattest cat. And I remember asking Davey how he joined the church, and he said, my only one regret is that I never joined the church earlier. He said, but I met with the missionaries over several years, and I decided that I need to make a decision. Is this the church I join? Is it not the church I join? And he said, I opened up the scriptures. Literally, my eyes looked straight at one verse. I read that verse and was baptized the next week. And I was like, wow, it was just incredible to meet. So, like, the strength of some members in, like, far-reaching places that that you're like, wow, the guy's testimony is so strong, and it's, I could pick you up and place you in another ward down south in like Glasgow or Edinburgh, and you'd be like, the bishop or something. It's crazy. So lovely. Jean McCallum, we used to go to Jean's every Friday for breakfast, I think it was, or lunch. But Jean was lovely. She'd worked in the London Temple for like decades and decades and decades, and then she was confined to a wheelchair. She couldn't get out to attend church. But you just met so many lovely members that you wanted to grab them, put them in your suitcase, and take them with you to your next area.
Yeah. Agreed.
There was one sister who she couldn't afford much, but she dreamt what she would feed the missionaries the next day. So I remember eating all sorts of contortions that she put in front of us. It was horrible. It was disgusting. But I didn't want to offend her, so I'd eat it. We taught this one guy, me and Elder Thomas, we taught this one guy in Macduff, and he was very intrigued. He wanted to join the church. His daughter had already joined the church, and we were on to a winner with this guy. We got him committed for baptism. We were literally a week away from getting him baptized, and we went over to his house to arrange the final bits to have him baptized. And there was no answer at the door, and I was just like, oh right, okay. And his daughter lived across the street, and she came out and she was like, you won't find him there. Oh right, okay. Is he out? No, he's been arrested. Oh, he's been arrested? Really? Yeah. You'll find him in Peterhead Prison. Oh.
What?
Yeah, and I'm like, Peterhead Prison? Really? Yeah, because obviously Peterhead Prison, I'm like, that means nothing to me. You're just saying Peterhead Prison like I know what it's all about. And I later learned out that there's only 2 prisons really that exist in the UK for certain people: Peterhead and Stafford in south, like towards Birmingham. Those 2 prisons are filled with people that mess around with children.
Wow.
So this guy that was just so promising, kids in the church, his daughter is already in the church, and we're just like, this guy is going for baptism, this is great. And then to find out that he's been messing around with like one of the kids down the street.
Wow.
Just like it really crushed, because it was like faith in humanity and everything. It's just like, what the hell? I just couldn't. I could never get my head around it, because he was in the meetings with us and he's talking to us about how I love the church and it's doing great things for my daughter, and I think it's right for me. I just feel the spirit so strong, and it's like, no, I can't. I just can't. So yeah, Elder Thomas moved on. He went to Greenock, and I got Adam Reynolds, my first English missionary. Now, Adam Reynolds came from Manchester, and I distinctively at the time thought to myself, I can't stand the Manchester accent. It grinds on me. It really grinds on me. And, like, we'd open the door, like, right, geezer, we're missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ. And I'm like, oh, seriously, stop saying geezer. I'm sick of the word geezer. Stop it. I came to hate the Manchester accent. I really did. I came to hate it, which is really weird because I'm married to a Manc. But, you know, and I was with Adam Reynolds for about 6 weeks. One of the stories I remember from being with him, we got a phone call about 11 o'clock at night from President Wilkinson, and he was like, "Elder Oliver, you're the nearest car to Peterhead. Elder Durnley and Elder West, they're not answering the phones. So we don't know what's happened to them. So we're going to need you to drive over to Peterhead and check on them and see if they're there. If they're there, great. Get them to ring the office, and then you guys can travel back to Huntley. You're talking minimum of an hour drive to Peterhead. Well, you lived in Peterhead, don't you? The flat at the time was opposite the bowling green. That flat. I can't remember the name of the street. But yeah, all I can remember is like, Elder Reynolds, we need to go to Peterhead. Why? Well, the missionaries are there, they're not answering the phone, and they don't know if they're there, if they've been attacked, or what's happened. So we need to go. And of course, missionaries now can carry mobile phones, and that would have been useful back then, if I'm being honest, because we're leaving the flat, and President Wilson was like, "Don't worry, we're going to keep on ringing the flat every 10 minutes until they answer." So we could have left that flat, and 10 minutes later they could have found out, yeah, they're in, and we're 50 minutes away from Peterhead, and we're still having to go there, not knowing what's going on. But yeah, we travelled in the darkest of nights through country lanes and what have you, and we finally arrived in Peterhead. We were banging away at the door. Elder Durnley comes to the door and he's like, "What's going on? What's going on? My phone's ringing. I've got you banging on my door. What's going on?" And we're just like, "Elder Durnley, you've not reported in. You've not answered the phone to say you're in your flat." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, we were tired. We just went straight to bed." I'm like, well, you need to ring the office. Mission president's waiting on hearing to see if you're okay. We're going to get back in the car. We're just going to go. See you later. Drove through the night again back to Huntley. Elder Durnley, I do, Matthew Durnley, I love the guy to bits, I really do, but sometimes you just wish missionaries would answer the phones. Elder West, I'm not sure about that guy. I'm really, even to this day, I'm not sure about him. Elder Durnley trained him. I remember sitting in district meetings where Elder Durnley would say, "Is there any other business?" And Elder West would go, "Yeah, it's raining outside." "All right, okay, wonderful. Is there any other business apart from it's raining outside?" "Yeah, it's really raining outside." And it's like, "Oh, wonderful. Elder West, you're slightly strange." But yeah, no.
Oh boy.
I enjoyed having a laugh with Adam. I really did. It was, I enjoyed the fact that I got to serve with another Englishman. I hated it at the same time. We were both very stubborn. We had our own things that we wanted to do, our own agendas. But I've still kept in contact with him after our missions. He married a girl from Oldham as well. He got married a week before I did. But yeah, Adam Reynolds, he's a class guy. Then I got a mission call. Then I got a phone call to move to Paisley, and of course, Chris Martin.
Yeah.
Chris, just I love the guy to bits. Like I remember writing, the whole story of writing down the wrong number or the wrong door and running out. The guy coming out with the cricket bat. I remember that. As soon as he started telling the story, I was like, no way, the cricket bat, yeah. And I remember legging it out the building, legging it down the street, even though I didn't want to be out there in the rain. I remember legging it as fast as I can to get away from the situation. And I'm constantly looking out. Where is he? Where is he? Has he got him? Do I need to go back? Do I need to help him? No, I'm not going to go back. The guy's got a cricket bat. Come on, I'm not doing that. But yeah, to see him walk out the door and walk down the street with a cricket bat in his hand, I felt so foolish, so stupid.
That's so good.
Chris Martin, lovely guy. I did love him. One of the things he might not know, but we did some service at this member's house called Veronica. I can't remember her surname. And Veronica said that she had a friend that was going to come over and we could talk to her about the gospel. And her friend came over and she was called Sarah Davidson. And she was a Baptist. Her family were Baptist. And we got talking about the church. Now Elder Martin moved out the area, and I got Elder Nephi Somerville, my second Englishman. And me and Elder Nephi Somerville, it's like putting two hungry cats in a room with nothing. We wanted to eat each other alive. I still I've managed to keep in contact with him after my mission as well. He lives, I think he lives over in Mansfield now or something like that. In Yorkshire, South Yorkshire. But yeah, we didn't get on. But for the time that we were there, we went over and we kept on inviting Sarah to come to church. And she came out to church. And I remember one Sunday after church, a few months prior to this, one of the members back in St. Helens had just converted from being a Baptist. And she sent me a note saying, one of the things I wish is that I converted years ago. When I realised that the Baptist church didn't make any sense. In her words. Not mine, in her words. Just in case there's any Baptists watching. But I turned around to Sarah at the time and I said to her about taking the discussions, and she was a bit like, well, I'm happy being a Baptist. And I relayed this experience of this member back in St. Helens, and she agreed to take the lessons. She agreed that we could start teaching her. We only taught her one lesson before we were both moved out the area. But 4 or 5 weeks after moving out, she was baptized.
Wow.
So I, even though I wasn't there for the baptism, I in my head I like to count that as like one of mine. We found her. I managed to convince her to take the lessons. Yes, okay. The local members helped, and the new missionaries helped, but she was one of mine. One of my converts.
That's great.
While there in Paisley, I remember me and Nephi. We knocked on this one door out in Barhead. Mm-hmm. And it was the top floor of a flat. And this American opened the door. He opened the door. He's like, "Oh yeah, you missionaries. I know who you are." No, sorry. In fact, he rang the missionary. He rang the flat and made an appointment with us. And we went out to him. And we didn't know who he was. We didn't know at the time that he was on the list of "you do not visit." But he was this American guy. He opened the door. He was wasted. He was completely wasted. You could smell it on him.
Oh no.
And he was like, come in. I've been waiting to talk to you guys. Okay, yeah, let's go in. So me and Elder Somerville, we sit there in his kitchen, and he was wasted beyond belief. Just, so tell me about you guys. I already know so much about the church. My friends still back in America. They're members of the church. Yeah. So tell me more about the church. Tell me more. And he'll get more wasted, and he wasn't actually drinking in front of us, but he was seemingly getting more and more wasted by the second. And then he's like, "Oh, just give me a sec." He goes out the room, and he comes back with a loaded shotgun. And he sits there at the table, and he's like, "Sing for me." What do you mean? Sing for me. Can we just leave? Would that be okay if we just left now? No, you need to sing. Not quite comfortable with this. No, you need to sing. You want us to sing. What do you want us to sing? Christmas hymns. Christmas hymns. You want us to sing Christmas hymns. In the middle of the year, you want us to sing Christmas hymns. Yeah, if you want to leave my flat, you need to sing. So I remember me and Elder Somerville singing like our lives literally depended on it. And eventually this guy fell asleep. We grabbed our bags, ran out that flat, ran down the stairs, ran away from the area as quick as we could. And like the next Sunday in the missionary correlation, we sat there and we were like, right, so we met this guy and he's American. And they were like, oh, living in Barhead? Yeah, how do you know? He's on the list of those that you don't go and visit. Oh, we don't have a copy of that list. We'll get you a list. There's a list. Oh, man. But like my young men now, I tell them stories about my mission and that one story, and they're like, oh yeah, come on, yeah, all right, yeah, you got held hostage by an American with a gun, yeah, okay, of course you did. And it's like, no, we really did, fearing for our lives that we're going to get shot by this guy, because you've seen it where the drunk and the gun goes off by mistake and so on, and you don't know what to expect, and it was just get me out of here.
Especially with someone who's not themselves in that moment, right?
Exactly.
Man, scary.
So yeah, I'm sure if Nephi watches this, and he'll recall being held at gunpoint by an American.
Wow.
Like I can look back and laugh on it. I hope he can too. But yeah, I remember we just sat there bricking it proper. Neither change our pants afterwards and so on.
Goodness.
But things weren't working well between the two of us. The mission president thought it was right to move us both out the area. And I got to go to the area of Granton in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And got put into a threesome with Clay Tuckett and Martin Quick. Now, like I was that guy. At that time. I was the guy who would be like stood there going, "Hey, Elder, quick!" And he'd be like, "Yeah, that's really funny, Elder Oliver. I've not heard that one before. Yeah, carry on." And I'd do it a few times until like he turned around and he was like, "No, seriously, stop. I've had enough. Stop." Now, when I arrived, I could sense like a little bit of tension between the two of them, as if things weren't just clicking for them. And I really, pondered, was this the right decision to have me come into the companionship? I love the pair of them to bits. I've kept in contact with them as well. I love the absolute pair of them to bits. It was one of the highlights for me of serving in Scotland with them. Just yesterday, or the day before, I read in one of the journals, while, that I got to serve with them, Elder Quick makes great curries. I have no idea what that's got reference to at all. I think he made us a curry. But a few weeks later, there it is again. Elder Quick makes great curries. And I'm like, I'm trying to rack my brains. I'm like, why would I write Elder Quick makes great curries in the journal? That makes no sense. But yeah, I managed. I got, I clicked with both of them. That was a special time. I love the pair of them. I talk about this. I've remembered an experience in Huntley that I need to go back to, but do that later. Now, I know Elder Quick has told you about the botanical gardens in his memories. The botanical gardens in Edinburgh was a gold mine. It really was. I don't know who it was out of the three of us that felt impressed to go there. But what turned to a brief visit for an hour turned into at least once a week, normally after church on a Sunday, swinging on the way back from church into the botanical gardens. And there was a special area where it was like a triangle with all these different plants, and you could see 3 benches in the triangle. And so you could see, and keep eye contact with each other. And we would just, one of us would go along and there'd be people sat on the bench, and you just like slip down into the bench. And, the line that we'd all use would be like, wow, just so amazing. So amazing. It's great to be in such a place like this after coming from church. Oh, what church have you come from? And so, we talked.
That's amazing.
Discussions in the botanical gardens. It was, I remember at one stage the mission president had to speak to the missionaries and say, listen, unless you say a prayer, it doesn't count as a discussion. You need to say a prayer for it to count. So I remember that, it was like within a couple of weeks of that, we're in the botanical gardens. The Elder Quick and Elder Tuckett, they've finished doing their lessons and finished with them. I've got this one guy who's like walking towards the exit of the park, and he's walking to the long exit of the park. And I was just like, well, do you know what? It's been lovely. It's been fabulous talking with you. I need to go back to my buddies over there who are waiting for me. Gave him a copy of the Book of Mormon. A guy came from Surrey in near London, and he said that he would look up missionaries when he gets back down to Surrey. And I was like, great, yeah. So departed, went back to Elder Quick and Elder Tuckett, and I was like, right. So that's another discussion. Let's fill in the circle on the goal card. You remember those?
Yep.
You need to do a circle for each goal that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I remember like first discussions at one point, we were doing like 20 circles in this tiny, ridiculous rectangle. And, I get back and we're like, yeah, we can fill this in. And Elder Tuckett's like, did you say a prayer? Oh, no. No, didn't say a prayer. I didn't. And I remember legging it after this guy, just running as fast as I can. And I got to him literally like 10 meters away from the exit of the park. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, but is it all right if I offer a prayer to give you a blessed day? And he was like, all right, yeah, you've run back to say a prayer. What's this about? And so, I said the prayer, and then I ran back to my companions who had managed at that point to like come over the ridge and could see me from a distance. But yeah, it's so like the botanical gardens was like a gold mine. I remember I think it was Elder Ridless Backer or something like that. He was a zone leader. He made a comment and he said, "You know what? You don't realize this, but you're leading the mission right now on first discussions." In 1 week, we taught 14 first discussions, 10 of which were at the Botanical Gardens. The following week, we taught 19 first discussions. Wow. And, we were just like on fire at the Botanical Gardens. So, fast forward a little bit. We moved into new premises, a new flat. But just before we moved, I remember the three of us, we went away into separate rooms. We wanted to pray about where to go and work the next day. I'm really, like, after listening to Elder Quick's podcast, I'm shocked that he forgot about this one, because it really, wow, such a spiritual experience for me anyway. But we came back together after a few minutes, and we'd all put down the same area. And we were like, right, okay, let's go and pray for a street. And we went away, we came back, and we'd all written down 3 streets, and at least one street in each of us was the same street. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. So obviously we need to go to that street. So the next day we went down to that street. It was all flats, all blocks of flats. And normally, like, I don't know if it was the same for you, but when it's raining, you get the lift up to the top floor and you work your way down instead of going up the stairs.
Yeah.
For some unknown reason, we decided that we felt right to knock on the first door on the first floor. Instead of going up to the top and working down, we felt like we had to go to the first floor and then work upwards. We knocked on this door and this girl answered the door, and she was like, "Who are you? Sorry?" "We're missionaries. We're God's missionaries. We've come to teach about his gospel. Please come in. Come in. Come in. Take a seat. Take a seat in the lounge. Take a seat." And we're like, okay, this is great. And then her dad comes in crying his eyes out. And he's like, "Who are you?" We're God's missionaries. We've come to teach you about the gospel. I've been praying all night that God would send his missionaries.
Wow.
He started praying literally half an hour before we started praying the next day of where to go.
That's amazing.
He all night. He stopped praying when there was a knock at the door. It was like, wow, if anything is going to tell you that God is behind this work, that's it.
Yeah.
We all 3 of us felt so inspired to go to that street, to that area. We felt inspired to knock on the first door instead of going upstairs. And we meet the guy that's been praying all night for us to go and visit him. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he joined the church later on, but it taught so much. Taught me an important lesson that God answers people's prayers. He really does. He answered this guy's prayer, and I may have just been, an instrument to him to go and help him, but he answers prayers, and it just testifies to you when experiences like that really hit home. They really do. It just makes you feel like, yeah, I'm in the right place. I'm doing the right thing at the right time. We served together for 3 months. It was a shame to part. We loved serving together that much that we didn't really want to leave. But I had to leave. I got sent to Ward to serve with Elder Fiats from Switzerland, who we argued over who had the best chocolate, the Swiss or the Cadbury's. The Swiss won, in my book anyway. The Swiss won. His chocolate was absolutely amazing. I loved serving with him. We obviously had our issues, but the majority of the time I was with him, I loved being around the guy. And then he left, and I got to serve with Charles Fife, Elder Fife. I don't remember too much about serving with Elder Fife. I just remember that we didn't really get on, and that I spent a lot of time running away from him. I really don't remember too much about my time with him, apart from running away from him. But we had a good experience. The members all around, everywhere we went, the members were just great. But Ward was slightly different. There was a special spirit about Ward. Especially about some of the wards, but Ward was one of them for me. We got to appear on a local DJ's radio show. I think it was like a university show, where we got to talk about the gospel. Never done that before in my mission. Never. That was like a new experience for me. Ward was just special. And then I got a move to Easter House. So to go Huntley, Paisley, Edinburgh, Irwood, Easter House. I was just like, where is Easter House? I've never even heard of Easter House prior to the move. I get there, I'm serving with Jonathan Redworth and Jonathan Hanks. And Easter House was home to a local prison. The prison literally spitting distance from the missionary flat. It had day release as well, so you'd literally be at the bus stop waiting for your bus, and the other people there would be prisoners that are on day release. But the prison there was the prison that the Lockerbie bomber was locked up in.
Oh my gosh!
And I just like the experiences there. Just whoa! Like first arriving, and Elder Redworth was invited to do a perform a burial ceremony for someone who we didn't know. We're pretty sure she wasn't a member of the church, but she'd taken lessons, and the family knew that she had missionaries over occasionally. So they rang the church, which in Springboig Ward, which diverted to our phone because they didn't have a building. And I remember going to this service, and I was like very creeped out about the whole thing. I didn't want to be there at all. It was challenging, very challenging. But again, the members made up the difference for me. There was a few families there. It was just it was lovely to be around them. Jonathan, the two Jonathans, they left, and along came my final companion, Elder Dan Jones from Texas. Daniel Jones, I loved him from the moment I saw him. I still do. Fantastic missionary. He was the right missionary for me to trunk out on. We clicked. We really did click. We had like we didn't have really anything in common, but we did have things in common at the same time. Our time together was brief, but I just there's something about him. I couldn't put my finger on it, and to this day I still can't. But he was just the right guy for me. I'd met so many and been companion to so many throughout the mission. But yeah, Dan Jones was just completely different. He was, but yeah, I can't even put my finger on it. I really can't. But yeah, those 6 weeks, I could have easily served longer with Dan. He was a cowboy. I remember him being a cowboy. But yeah, we used to sing together. He was probably one that I was most comfortable around singing with him. And I remember the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" When the song "Down in the River to Pray." We went, and for like my last zone conference, the musical item was myself and Dan, and we sang that song in the missionary zone conference. Just something special about the guy. Going back briefly, Huntley, when I was with Elder Thomas, what I missed out was that my dad sent me a letter after a few weeks, and he said, "You may be interested to know that your Auntie Janet and Uncle Jim live somewhere near Huntley."
Wow.
Like, all right, okay. Send us the address. I'll see if they're in the area. They were 10 minutes drive away from the missionary flat. And I knocked on the door. My Auntie Janet opened the door and she was like, "Oh, yes, I know who you are. You're from the church. We have relatives who are members of the church down south in England. Not interested in the slightest." Slam. So I knocked on the door again, and she answered the door, and she was like, "Sorry, did you not understand what I was saying?" And I just said, "Auntie Janet, do you not recognise me?" "Joseph, oh, your nana told me that you were coming to Scotland. I didn't realise you'd get to knock on our door." And through with Elder Thomas and Elder Reynolds, meeting my cousins for what I think was like the first time ever in my life. If I had met them before, I don't remember it. And getting to teach some discussions, some principles of the gospel, and why we're on a mission, what drove us out to be out there. And I just, I remember thinking, the patriarchal blessing said that I will go to a country and teach my family. God didn't tell me which country that was.
That's right.
It was Scotland. But yeah, the blessing of the patriarchal blessing came true for me. I got to teach family in another country. I do feel that I was probably President Wilkinson's biggest pain in the backside as a missionary for him. But he taught me so much. At the time, he probably thought it didn't sink in, and I'll admit it really didn't. It didn't sink in at the time. But I made notes about every single thing he taught me, and I would read over those notes after completing the mission. And later on in life, I'm putting things like that in place. I remember going to his own conference, and he taught us what the atonement really meant. what the real purpose of the atonement, what the atonement means, at one with Christ. How the word atonement is split up into 3 words and so, I'd never been taught like that before. And now I put it in place. I literally bring people into the bishop's office and I'm teaching them what the atonement means. I'm putting what his teachings in place. I hated memorizing things. I don't think I finished those. Hang on. Yeah, I finished memorizing the discussions before I finished my mission. But I hated memorizing. I just hated it. Now my mind is filled with lots of things I can memorize to my heart's content. But I couldn't memorize. I really couldn't. And yeah, so yeah, I finished the mission, back to the mission home. I got the opportunity to return with honour from President Wilkinson, which is probably the key thing for me that kept me out after that month of hardship at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And my parents drove all the way to Edinburgh to pick me up. And I'll finish with this because it's, it shows how much I changed. I saw the car arrive, I saw them get out the car, and I thought, I'm going to go say hello to my mum and dad. And as I approached, I said, "Good morning, how you doing, sister?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm doing well, Elder, thank you." And she just walked straight past.
She did not. Oh my gosh.
My dad, he just went, "Beryl." And she was like, "Oh, no. And she turns around and she's like, "No. What?" She didn't recognize me. My own mum didn't recognize me. I put on a ton of weight. I put on something like 2 or 3 stone in the MTC alone.
Okay.
My last area of springboarding, I put on a lot of weight. There was a family that lived nearby the flat, and they would feed us most nights. If even if we'd had a dinner appointment elsewhere, they'd still feed us. I put on a lot of weight in that last area. But yeah, it's an experience for me I'm never going to forget. I just hope that one day I get to go on a couple's mission with my wife, and if it's Scotland, then great. I get to show her all the places and hopefully meet people that are not dead by the time I get up there.
That's right.
And get to meet loads of members that I remember. But yeah, Scotland forever will hold a special place in my heart. There's nowhere else that has filled the gap like Scotland has.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, Joseph. It's been an awesome journey that you've taken me on. So thank you, and I know that those listening will have appreciated it as well. One last question that I'll ask you is, including your companions, is there anybody that you want to call out or shout out to come on this podcast and do the same that you'd love to hear from in the coming episodes?
Yeah, I would love Clay Tuckett. Dan Jones, if you can get him.
Okay.
Jesse Jones, I reached out to him on Facebook when I first got on Facebook, and then suddenly he was gone off Facebook. I don't know if I scared him off or anything like that, but it'd be great if Jesse came on. Maybe that way I can fully understand the pain in the backside it was for him. Nathan Thomas. And yeah, one that I didn't serve with, Mike Archibald.
Mhm.
I've seen Sean Thomas's podcast. I served with Sean in along when I was there with Elder Fiat, and Elder Trevor Jenkins as well. I've seen his podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, they served together, and I was in there with them. Let's see. Yeah. Bryn Loganberg from Manchester. I've not seen his podcast. If you've done it,
We haven't. We spoke with his younger brother, who was in my MTC group, but we haven't gotten in touch with Bryn, and he's been requested several times, so he's on my to-do list for sure.
Yeah, Bryn. I would love nothing else than to listen to his. That would be amazing. Yeah. Elder Gilbert, Douglas Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
Good friend of mine. And yeah, Matthew Durnley. I know he was meant to do one before Christmas, and it got delayed or something. Matthew Durnley. I would love to hear his experiences, especially the interaction I got to have with him. Yeah, but yeah.
I can tell you that I have him on my schedule here in the next, let's see, what's today? 1, 2, 3 weeks from today, I'll be speaking with Matthew. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so that'll be good.
I will look forward to that. I really will. Yeah, no.
If there's any others that you come across in the coming days, don't hesitate to reach out and send them my way, because I'd be happy to reach out to more.
A few more. Sorry, I've just remembered.
Yeah.
The guys that were in the MTC with me that went to Scotland. Phil Cochran. He might be hard to get hold of. He's in the Navy, in the British Navy.
Okay.
But Phil Cochran. I can't remember his first name, but Holdsworth, Elder Holdsworth. He was from Las Vegas. He was out with me, and I think it's
Brett.
Yeah, Brett Holdsworth, and Skylar Summer. Yeah, we were like the comedians together in the MTC, Skylar and me. Him to bits. Yeah, Skylar Summer.
Okay.
And if you do manage to find Trevor Stanworth, then that might be all right as well.
Yeah, we'll work on it. If any of those missionaries are listening to this, make sure they check their Facebook's messengers, because there's a likely a message request from myself from Zachary Hewlett. So hopefully, if they see it, they'll be willing to respond. But I will continue to reach out to them for sure. And one thing that you can help us with too, Joseph, is we love referrals. So just like any other moment in our missions, send them our way. If they are not active on social media, they can go to our website, which should be pretty easy to remember. It's 51spylaw.com. And there's a contact sheet on there that they can fill out, and then I'll reach out to them via email, which is just as easy. But more than anything, just want to express to you how much we love you, Joseph. Thanks for being our brother in Scotland, and ultimately for those of us that followed you into the Scotland Edinburgh Mission, you paved the way and set a high precedence for us to continue to work on that amazing work. And like you said, that spot in our hearts that we have for that amazing land, the wonderful people that are there, and ultimately it's just something that we'll cherish forever. And I'm so grateful that you're our brother in Scotland. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll give you a hearty cheerio. Go ahead.
I've seen that on some of the podcasts. You have like a cover picture.
Yeah.
Do you want me to send a cover picture?
Yes. Send me over your finest photo of you and your girls. I'm sure that'll be lovely, and we'll use that. It'd be great.
Okay. Wonderful.
All right. Well, again, we love you, Joseph. We'll certainly talk more soon, and we'll be in touch. All right.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. Cheerio, mate. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye now.